Beneath the blazing Texas sun, something eerie is unfolding. Cities once booming with energy, tech, and growth are now eerily quiet. Streets that echoed with construction noise are now filled with for sale signs collecting dust. From oil towns to tech suburbs, home values are crashing, buyers have vanished, and empty homes whisper of a boom gone bust. The housing dream has turned into a financial nightmare, and what's happening in Texas could be the prelude to a nationwide collapse. These aren't just slowdowns, they're transformations into ghost towns. Number 12. Sugarland. Sugarland, once a shining gem of the greater Houston metro, is now raising red flags in Texas's housing landscape. Home to nearly 110,000 people, this upscale suburb has always been known for its master-planned communities, lush parks, and strong school districts. But by mid-2025, housing market dynamics here have shifted dramatically. Median home prices, which peaked around $480,000 in late 2022, have since dropped to roughly $405,000, a decline of nearly $570,000, 16% over 2 years. It's not just prices slipping. Inventory has ballooned from a lean 1.8 months in 2021 to over 4.7 months in 2025, signaling waning buyer demand and seller anxiety. One of the biggest concerns is overbuilding. With new subdivisions sprouting up across Fort Bend County and interest rates hovering above 7%, many middle-income buyers have simply been priced out. Meanwhile, existing homeowners are reluctant to sell, knowing their 3% mortgage is gold compared to current rates. That stagnation has caused transaction volumes to fall by over 30% year over year. Days on market for the average listing have climbed past 70, nearly triple what it was during the boom. Adding to the pressure, Sugarland's property tax rate remains among the highest in the Houston metro, hovering around 2.3%. On a $400,000 home, that's over $9,000 per year before you even factor in insurance, which has also surged post-hurricane seasons. Rental demand is softening too, as newer apartment complexes add thousands of units, leading to concessions and rent drops of 5 to 7% annually. The result? A once red-hot suburban haven is cooling rapidly. Sugarland is showing all the symptoms of a housing correction: rising supply, falling prices, and a demand vacuum that's spooking investors and homeowners alike. Number 11. Pecos. Pecos, a small West Texas town with a population of around 12,000, is experiencing one of the most dramatic real estate whiplashes in the entire state. Once booming from the Permian Basin oil surge, Pecos saw average home prices skyrocket from just $90,000 in 2015 to nearly $210,000 by 2020. 2022, a 133% increase. Investors flooded in, banking on oil-driven demand, especially for worker housing. But in 2025, that boom has evaporated. Prices have since crashed back down to around $135,000, a 35% nosedive in just 2 years. That's not just a correction, it's a wipeout. With oil companies scaling back production and moving operations elsewhere, rental demand from transient workers has dried up. Vacancy rates for small rental units now exceed 20%, and landlords are slashing rents just to stay afloat. New construction projects sit half-finished, abandoned or delayed due to financing issues. Permits for new housing developments have dropped by over 60% since 2023. Making matters worse, Pecos lacks the economic diversity to absorb the shock. Job opportunities outside energy are scarce, prompting a wave of outmigration. Local school enrollment is down, and foreclosures have risen by 40% year over year. Homes that used to sell in under a week now sit on the market for 90-plus days with no offers. Investors who once hoped to cash flow $1,500 a month are now lucky to get $900, and that's if they can find a tenant. With low population density and economic contraction, Pecos is becoming a cautionary tale of boomtowns gone bust. Its real estate market is no longer just cooling, it's bordering on collapse, and the ripple effects could haunt the area for years to come. Number 10. Big Spring. Big Spring, population around 25,000, is another West Texas city that soared too fast and is now paying the price. The oil economy brought temporary prosperity in the early 2000s and 20s, pushing median home prices from $105,000 in 2017 to nearly $190,000 by 2022, a shocking 80% jump in a town with stagnant wages. But in 2025, the party is clearly over. Home prices have fallen back to around $145,000, a 24% decline that's left recent buyers underwater and investors scrambling to cut losses. The problem? Over-reliance on oil and gas jobs that are disappearing fast. Big Spring's unemployment rate, once below 4%, now hovers above 7.5%. That economic pressure has created a housing chain reaction. Foreclosures have doubled since 2023. Listings have exploded by 40%, and price cuts are visible on nearly every street. The inventory supply has shot up to 5.5 months, a clear signal of an imbalanced market. On the rental side, it's no better. Landlords report 15% vacancy rates, and average rent for a 3-bedroom unit has dropped from $1,200 per month to just $950 in 18 months. Construction has come to a standstill, with developers pulling out due to low ROI projections. To make matters worse, property taxes and insurance premiums are climbing. A modest $150,000 home now costs over $4,000 annually in combined taxes and insurance. A heavy burden for working-class families already squeezed by inflation and job uncertainty. Big Spring's decline isn't just about real estate. It's a signal of a deeper economic vulnerability. Without diversification or major investment, this city risks becoming a shell of its former self. What was once a modest boomtown is now a prime example of how quickly things can unravel when demand evaporates and prices correct violently. Number 9. Ozona. Ozona, a tiny town of barely 3,000 people tucked away in Crockett County, is facing a quiet but brutal housing downturn. Known for its isolation and oil field economy, Ozona's real estate market became a speculative gold mine during the shale boom, with small homes jumping from $70,000 in 2015 to over $160,000 by 2022. But in 2025, the collapse is unmistakable. Current average home values have plummeted to roughly $110,000, a painful 31% drop in just under 3 years. This decline is driven by a steep pullback in oil-related employment and a shrinking population. As oil rigs shut down and workers relocate, the local economy has stalled. Housing inventory, which once hovered at 1.2 months, has ballooned to over 6 months. An astonishing number in such a small town. New listings have doubled, but buyer interest is almost non-existent. Rental properties have been hit hard. Studio and 1-bedroom units once rented for $900 a month to oil workers. Now landlords struggle to get $600, if at all. Vacancy rates exceed 25%, and many investors have abandoned their properties altogether, unable to sell or maintain them. Adding to the pressure, rising insurance costs tied to regional storm risks are squeezing homeowner budgets. Combined with a limited buyer pool and no major industries to backstop the economy, Ozona's market is in freefall. Homes sit for sale for over 120 days on average, with many seeing multiple price cuts. This isn't just a price dip, it's a structural collapse. With no new jobs, minimal migration, and dwindling services, Ozona's housing market resembles a slow-motion ghost town scenario. The recovery timeline here could be measured in decades, not years. Number 8. Raymondville. Raymondville, a modest city of about 10,000 residents in South Texas, is quietly sinking into housing turmoil in 2025. Once seen as a peaceful, affordable alternative to nearby Harlingen and McAllen, its housing market is now unraveling under the weight of weak demand and poor economic fundamentals. The median home price, which peaked around $125,000 in 2021, has now dropped to approximately $88,000. A steep drop 30% plunge in just 4 years. This collapse isn't just due to overvaluation, it's structural. Raymondville suffers from limited job growth, stagnant wages, and a declining population. Nearly 18% of homes are now vacant, and inventory has doubled to over 5 months. Homes that used to sell in 30 days now linger for 90 days or more. Property values are collapsing faster in older neighborhoods, where deferred maintenance and outdated infrastructure scare off potential buyers. Rental properties have taken a hit too. Average rent for a two-bedroom unit has dropped from $850 per month in 2022 to just $640 per month in 2025. That's not enough to cover costs for many landlords, especially as property taxes and insurance premiums continue to rise. Investors who once saw promise here during the South Texas land rush are now exiting fast, offloading homes at heavy losses. Construction has halted entirely. 0 new permits have been filed in the past 12 months. With few amenities, high crime relative to its size, and limited healthcare and education services, Raymondville's outlook remains bleak. Without state or federal intervention, the housing market may never fully recover, making it one of Texas's most at-risk small towns in 2025. Number 7. Lubbock. Lubbock, known as the hub city of West Texas and home to Texas Tech University, was once a picture of affordable, stable real estate. But by 2025, cracks in the foundation are becoming too large to ignore. With a population nearing 270,000, Lubbock's real estate market has slipped into serious distress. Median home prices, which soared to $275,000 in early 2022, have since dropped to around $218,000. A 21% decline that's put enormous pressure on recent buyers and developers alike. The problem lies in a combination of overbuilding, rising interest rates, and softening student demand. New subdivisions expanded rapidly during the post-COVID boom, but now many sit partially vacant. Inventory has spiked to over 6 months of supply, while homes linger on the market for an average of 78 days. Nearly 40% of active listings have had at least 2 price cuts since January. Landlords are also feeling the pinch. Rent for a 3-bedroom home has dipped from $1,500 to $1,200, and apartment vacancy rates now hover around 12%, even with student populations. Investors who banked on college town returns are struggling to maintain cash flow. Maintenance backlogs and tenant turnover have made older properties liabilities. Construction is slowing fast. Permit activity has fallen 47% year over year as builders brace for a prolonged downturn. Meanwhile, property taxes, averaging 2.2%, and inflation-driven repair costs have eaten into margins. First-time buyers are sidelined by high borrowing costs, while sellers refuse to budge, creating a stalemate. Lubbock's market isn't dead, but it's stuck, trapped between economic optimism and hard housing data. And unless affordability improves and demand rebounds, this West Texas city could be facing a long, cold correction. Number 6. Amarillo. Amarillo, sitting in the heart of the Texas Panhandle, has long been praised for its blue-collar resilience and affordability. But in 2025, the housing market here is heading into troubled territory. Median home prices, which crested at $240,000 in late 2022, have dropped to around $190,000. A 21% decline that's hitting both homeowners and investors hard. One major factor: Amarillo's economy is heavily reliant on agriculture, food processing, and light manufacturing, all sectors under pressure due to inflation and supply chain volatility. Job growth has slowed to a crawl, and unemployment has ticked up to nearly 6.8%. As a result, homebuyer demand has weakened significantly. Inventory levels are up 60% year over year, and the average time to sell a home has jumped from 32 days in 2022 to nearly 85 days in 2025. Properties aren't faring much better. Rent for a typical 2-bedroom unit has fallen from $1,100 to $860 per month, and landlords are offering move-in incentives just to fill vacancies. Investors from Dallas and Austin who poured money into Amarillo's once steady cash flow market are now trying to exit at a loss. New construction has also come to a screeching halt. Permit filings are down 55%, and many planned housing developments have been scrapped. At the same time, rising property insurance, especially due to increased storm activity and hail damage in the region, is pushing carrying costs higher. Taxes, averaging 2.4%, mean owners are now paying over $4,500 annually on a $190,000 home. Amarillo isn't emptying out, but its housing market is clearly under stress. Without stronger job growth or new industries to fuel demand, it's at serious risk of prolonged stagnation or further price deterioration in the years ahead. Number 5. Corpus Christi. Corpus Christi, perched along the Gulf Coast and home to over 315,000 residents, is facing a housing downturn that many didn't see coming. Once celebrated for its beach town charm and military presence, the city's real estate market is showing unmistakable signs of stress in 2025 home prices, which peaked near $260,000 in 2022, have dropped to around $205,000, a sharp 21% decline. But that's just the surface. Inventory has surged from under 2 months to over 5.3 months in just 2 years, a clear signal that homes are sitting unsold. Days on market have ballooned to 90-plus days, and 42% of active listings have seen multiple price cuts since late 2024. A slowdown in oil refining, weakening port activity, and rising flood insurance premiums have made Corpus Christi far less attractive for buyers and investors. Rental demand has softened too. Average rent for a 2-bedroom unit has dropped from $1,300 per month to $1,050, and landlords are offering free months and waived deposits to compete. Meanwhile, property taxes, averaging 2.6%, combined with coastal insurance premiums averaging $3,800 per year, are crushing investor returns. Many new home developments on the city's outskirts are sitting partially vacant, while older homes near the waterfront require expensive maintenance and flood-proofing upgrades. Several planned apartment complexes have halted construction altogether due to lack of funding. As tourism flattens and economic diversification remains limited, the city's housing market is no longer riding a wave. It's drifting. Without a rebound in energy, shipping, or tourism, Corpus Christi's once buzzy real estate market could become a long-term cautionary tale. Number 4. McKinney. McKinney, a rapidly growing suburb north of Dallas, was once hailed as one of the best places to live in America. But in 2025, this high-flying housing market is tumbling fast. Between 2017 and 2022, McKinney's median home price exploded from around $290,000 to a jaw-dropping $540,000, a nearly 86% increase. Now, in just 2 years, prices have dropped back down to about $435,000, shedding over 19% of value as demand dries up and inventory swells. The root of the collapse? Oversupply. Developers couldn't build fast enough during the boom, and by 2023 there were thousands of new units flooding the market. Today, inventory sits at over 6 months, and over 50% of active listings have had their prices slashed. Homes that once sold in bidding wars now sit stagnant for over 100 days. Affordability has vanished. With mortgage rates hovering around 7.5%, the monthly payment on a median-priced home is now over $3,300, including taxes and insurance. That's unaffordable for many middle-class families who once dreamed of living here. Property taxes alone can reach $10,000 annually on newer homes, and insurance premiums have surged with inflation. Rents are softening as well. Luxury apartment complexes are offering up to 3 months free, and average rents have fallen 9% from their 2022 highs. Investors who once saw McKinney as a can't-miss market are now underwater on their mortgages. Despite strong schools and infrastructure, McKinney is facing a painful correction. The demand that once propped it up has vanished, and the city is now overbuilt and overpriced for what buyers are willing to pay in a high-rate environment. Unless employment or affordability improves, McKinney risks becoming one of Texas's most overhyped housing busts. Number 3. Frisco. Frisco was the poster child of the North Texas housing boom, a tech-savvy, master-planned paradise with exploding growth and endless development. But by 2025, the same ingredients that fueled its rise are causing its sharpest decline. Median home prices hit a wild high of $680,000 in 2022. Today, that number has dropped to approximately $545,000, a nearly 20% drop 20% decline that has homeowners and investors on edge. Frisco's downfall is rooted in massive overbuilding. Between 2018 and 2022, the city issued over 25,000 new home permits, betting on relentless population growth. But with mortgage rates now north of 7.5%, buyer demand has cooled dramatically. Inventory has jumped to 6.2 months, and nearly 60% of listings have been reduced, some by over $100,000. Monthly mortgage payments on average homes now exceed $4,000, factoring in Frisco's hefty 2.4% property tax rate and rising insurance costs. That's pushing many buyers out of the market entirely, while sellers who bought at the peak are unwilling or unable to sell without a loss. Rentals are also under pressure. Luxury townhomes that fetched $2,900 per month in 2022 now sit vacant at $2,400, with landlords throwing in perks and upgrades. Vacancy rates in new builds have crept toward 15%, and many out-of-state investors are scrambling to sell. Even commercial real estate is showing stress. Many new retail spaces remain empty, and office leasing has slowed. Frisco's reputation as a futuristic boomtown is starting to feel like a mirage. While the city still boasts great schools, sports facilities, and infrastructure, the housing market is in deep correction mode. Without an interest rate drop or migration surge, Frisco could become a high-priced ghost town of empty homes and anxious investors. Number 2. Austin. Austin, once the crown jewel of Texas's tech-driven housing boom, is now ground zero for one of the most aggressive real estate corrections in the country. Between 2017 and 2022, Austin's median home price surged from $325,000 to an astonishing $620,000, driven by massive tech relocations, pandemic-era migration, and investor speculation. But by mid-2025, that bubble has burst. The median home price has now dropped to around $480,000, a 22.5% plunge in under 3 years. The warning signs are everywhere. Inventory levels have skyrocketed to over 6.8 months, nearly double the national average. Homes that once received 10 offers in 48 hours are now sitting on the market for 90-plus days. Nearly 58% of all listings in 2025 have seen at least one price cut, and bidding wars have all but disappeared. Monthly mortgage payments are crushing demand. At 7.5% interest, a $480,000 home comes with a monthly cost of over $3,800 when taxes and insurance are included. This has sidelined both first-time buyers and seasoned investors. Renters aren't faring much better. Average rent for a 2-bedroom unit has fallen from $2,150 in 2022 to $1,750 in 2025, a 19% drop driven by oversupply from recent construction. Austin's luxury condo market is in particularly bad shape. Dozens of high-rise units remain unsold, and some developers are offering steep discounts or canceling projects entirely. New home construction permits have declined over 50% year-over-year as builders hit the brakes. While Austin still boasts a vibrant culture and a strong tech presence, layoffs at major companies like Meta and Amazon's scaled-back office plans have cooled job growth. Investors who once saw Austin as a no-brainer are now staring at negative cash flow, over-leveraged portfolios, and a long path to price recovery. Number 1. San Antonio, Texas. San Antonio, the second-largest city in Texas with over 1.5 million residents, is now confronting a housing crisis that many didn't see coming. Long considered an affordable and stable market, San Antonio's real estate boom during 2020 to 2022 turned dangerously speculative. Median home prices jumped from $220,000 in 2019 to over $375,000 in 2019. 2022, a 70% surge that outpaced local wage growth by a mile. Fast forward to 2025, and the market is correcting hard. Median prices have fallen to about $300,000, a 20% drop from the peak. What's alarming is how quickly things have unraveled. Inventory levels have ballooned from 2.1 months in early 2022 to over 6.5 months in 2025, a clear sign of supply outpacing demand. Days on market have tripled from 28 to nearly 90, and over half of all listings are being relisted with reduced prices. Builders have paused new projects as unsold inventory piles up across Bexar County. Affordability has collapsed. At current mortgage rates near 7.5%, monthly payments on a median-priced home now exceed $2,800 when you include taxes and insurance, up from $1,450 just 3 years ago. Renters are also feeling the crunch, with average rents for a two-bedroom unit dropping from $1,450 in 2022 to $1,170 in 2025 as oversupply floods the market. San Antonio's economy remains relatively strong thanks to military, healthcare, and tourism, but it's not immune to broader national pressures. Investor demand has dried up, particularly in suburbs like Converse and New Braunfels, where overdevelopment has led to falling home values and rising vacancies. Foreclosures are ticking upward, and small landlords are increasingly offloading properties at a loss. In short, San Antonio is shifting from boom to bust. Without a meaningful drop in rates or a surge in job growth, the city may see continued price declines well into 2026. The cracks in this once steady housing market are now impossible to ignore.